I heard a bad out there. Ooh, who was it? Where was the bad come from? There was a bad out there. I heard it. All right, nobody had a bad day. Y'all have a good day. Well, there you go. That's a good day too, wasn't it? All right. Since y'all are kind of weak this evening, I'll just get on into it. I am going to start off tonight by reading you a small little excerpt from a book. Now, I'll admit this is it's kind of deep. So what we are going to read it. We're going to kind of discuss what we might think it means and stuff, and then we're going to look into the meaning of it. And then we're going to get into what I'm really trying to get to at the end of it. So we'll start right on off. I actually typed it up so that it can be on the screen so y'all can see it, not just hear me read it. It's from A River Runs Through It, my favorite book in the movie as far as outside the church, or the Bible, and I just heard my wife say, imagine that. But there's a lot of good lessons in this book, even though the writer, well, we'll get to that. I don't want to get into it. But anyway, here's the excerpt. It's from the end of the book. Eventually, and y'all pay attention and look at it and pay attention because, like I said, it's kind of heady, but I want to see what y'all's thoughts are. Eventually, all things merge into one, and a river runs through it. The river was cut by the world's great flood and runs over rocks from the basement of time. On some of the rocks are timeless raindrops. Under the rocks are the words, and some of the words are theirs. I am haunted by waters. Norman McLean wrote that in his book, A River Runs Through It. Now, that book was a book that is a work of fiction, but it was based on his family growing up and things like that. And this is when he's an old man looking back, and then this is what he wrote at the end of it, was this right here. Now, like I said, I want to kind of see if anybody has an idea of what they think. And just don't feel bad if you don't, because I want you to know that it's been years that I have thought about this statement and looked into it, or a little bit, and then finally really gave some real study for what he's really saying. And it comes from kind of two different directions. So anybody have any thoughts when they, on that? And I think kids, adults, all of us. Anybody with any thoughts on any of it, or any part of it, or as a whole? And it is talking about his past. Yes. That's very good.
Would it be like the timeless raindrops, like moments that had a lasting effect, and under that, or like that possibly come from your words, like things that were spoken that hurt?
Okay, yeah.
That's the
lasting mark. The lasting mark part is very much on the line of some of the meaning there. Anybody else got any thoughts? Go ahead, Carl.
I was thinking before, and
Okay.
the worst in that. What's the last thing?
All right.
Lost by the
Yeah.
water, the river that runs through it,
And I like where you're going, and that's thinking. Let me ask this question then, because all of y'all are hitting on this stuff great. Let me ask y'all this: what do you think he means by eventually all things merge into one and a river runs through it? Anybody have any idea what you think that means?
All things in life merge together.
I would think like
But
it's
you're-
our lives all merge.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
or
The river,
when something is like that timeless raindrop, it can eventually bleed into everything, right?
Yep.
the river is his life. His whole life.
This is what I'm saying. This is a very, very heady, very
Did he ever
deep.
did he ever confirm what
He
that?
didn't exactly, but like I said, I'm not kidding you when I say I've looked at this for years. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like I've made this my life study. I have from time to time studied into his writing, into who he is, and then and applied, and like I said, I don't want to get ahead of myself on what this is really going to. But I've looked at all of this stuff to come up with, some of it's from him, some of it is from outside study and things like that, as to what he really means in this, and what it really means. Let me put it that way. We can never really say what somebody means, but we can say what it comes across as, and what it means in that sense. And y'all are nailing things here, so that's really good. So to keep it from going too long, let's jump on in a little bit. Y'all have done it really good. Now I want to read the things that I've kind of put, and I'm just going to read this, so instead of trying to explain, I wrote this so I could not just be kind of all over the place. But listen to this and see what you think as you put it with this. All of life, all of our life, will end up running together. And those of us that are a little older can understand this better than the youth can, because you've not reached the point where time really starts to really flow by you. But all of life will end up running together without much visible or observed difference. Or in other words, we will start to see things that just kind of become a blur. And I think some of us that's a little bit older kind of understand that there are things that we may have used to. We would have been up to date on everything. We knew everything. It's crystal clear what's going on. But as our life goes on, our focus begins to shift to more important things, and the rest kind of blurs to the side. And does anybody know what I'm saying there? Does that make sense? All right. So that happens, with the exception of those few things that become most important in our lives. Because our focus becomes far more razor sharp on certain things. A lot of us it's our family, or it's something that has a lot of purpose and meaning in our lives, and those things become important. That is the river that runs through it. See, the river is the most important things. It's our focus. If you understood Norman McLean, all of life for his dad and him and his brother, everything was revolved around fly fishing. Their whole life was that. As he put it, after his daddy was a Presbyterian preacher. His daddy would preach in the mornings on Sunday, and then after church, the boys would have to study and recite the Westminster Catechism for a little while, and then they would go on a walk down by the river or through the hills, where his daddy would relax and unwind, talk a little bit about the sermon from the morning, talk a little bit about what the sermon would be for the night. It gave him an opportunity to kind of relax, but it was everything was around fly fishing in his family. So the river, the Blackfoot River in their case, was the central theme of their life. So a river runs through it. The river is those important things. It's the things that we focus on in our lives. Whereas that the river is running through is all those other things that begin to, as we get older, to take less shape and less form. And our focus, it gets there. But now we'll keep on reading. Those important things are so significant that they are just like the old great river whose course was cut by the great flood of Noah, with only the hardest, most base rock remaining to steer the course. The impressions left by those important people and things from our lives go to our very core, or our innermost being. That's the timeless raindrops he's talking about. Yeah. So these things that are so important to us and that have made such an impression on us, they're imprinted on something that is base and solid. It's never going to change. It's always there. That's where that's at. Now, that's talking to the part of us as people that is constant, that is the most constant. Does that make sense? The things that don't change. The things that don't change about us or about the things that we focus on. But here's the thing. Here's where it keeps going. But even more constant than this river, or the impressions of those timeless raindrops, or those things that have the most impression on us, is the Word. You read, it says, under the rocks are the words. Now here, and we're going to get to explain a few things. Under the rocks are the words. So more important than the base things in life, in our own lives, more important than the effect that people and things have on us, those timeless raindrops on that base core of us, more important than that is the Word. Now, I want to read a couple of verses to us, and I want to explain something, and we're going to look at some differences in Norman McLean and his dad, John McLean. But to read a couple verses first, I'm going to start with us in the book of Deuteronomy. And this is a verse that just applied to me to this statement. Deuteronomy 33, chapter 33, verse 27 said this, and I'm not even going to read the whole verse. The eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. So the underneath the rocks, under the rocks kind of, is the everlasting arms. What are the everlasting arms? What is that? What is that word that's under the very base of the rock? We can come to John chapter 1 and figure that out. In John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, and verse 14, and we've read this one before. In the beginning was the Word. And what did it say? The words were under the rock. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Go down to verse 14, and it says, and the Word was made flesh, and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Who is the Word? Jesus. We've studied this before. The Word is Jesus. We know that. We also know that the Word was here way before somebody was born. You know, Jesus was born of Mary. He was here with God when he created. Can you put the quote back up there, Josh? He was under the rocks, or the words. And see, Norman McLean was taking something that his daddy was trying to teach him as a kid. And Norman, who was an intelligent man, who ended up being a professor of, I think, literature and English at the University of Chicago. I mean, just a learned man, a great writer if you like that type of writing. And I do. It's a observational style writing that puts a lot of thought into observing your surroundings and things like that. He was this smart guy, real smart guy. His dad was from everything I've been able to find about John McLean, his father, he was a great preacher. He was a great preacher. All right. So John is teaching Norman these little things like this, and he's getting these ideas. But here's the thing. Norman McLean, with all of his intelligence, I believe, missed the whole point that his dad was trying to get to, trying to make to him, with the things he would tell him about stuff like this. I think he was missing most of what he was trying to truly teach him. And here's why. And this is where I was getting to with all this. There's two ways for us to understand things. Two ways. Can anybody tell me what those two ways are? There's two ways to understand things. And I mean, you don't have to answer. And that can be one way to put it. But let's look at it like this. You ever heard the term worldview? Anybody know what the term worldview means? And do you know that there's really... Well, worldview, there's two kinds of worldviews. That's all there is. Now, there's lots of subtitles for worldviews, but there's two kinds of worldviews. You have the wisdom of the world that gives you a worldly worldview, or you have the wisdom of God that gives you a godly worldview. That's the only two ways that you have wisdom. That's it. There's no other way to have wisdom or to have intelligence either. That's it. That's all there is. There's two ways. Now, I'm going to read to you a couple more verses. That'll be all our verses for tonight. But I'm going to turn them first to 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20 says this. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings in opposition of science, thoughtfully so called. And I'm going to go right over here, real quick. You can kind of hold that if you want to, because we'll talk about it just a little bit. But in the book of Romans, first chapter, verse 22, it says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Everything in this world, it can be looked at, and it can even be explained. Here's the thing that you got to understand. It can even be explained from either of these two opposing views, or opposing viewpoints, worldviews. Where your faith is determines your viewpoint. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying about that? If I have faith in God, that's right. If I have faith in God to give me the wisdom and intelligence I need for something, then I have a godly worldview. But if I put my faith in my education, or if I put my faith in my abilities, if that's where my faith is, that means my worldview becomes a man worldview, a humanistic worldview. I have put my faith in the wrong place if I, as far as a Christian is concerned. Our worldview is determined, our viewpoint is determined by where our faith is. Now, Norman McLean, as I told you, was a very intelligent man. And he really was. He was just, he had plenty of wisdom. He learned a lot. He was very educated. And he put all of his stock into that. He believed the things that his dad tried to teach him and tell him, and you can put that quote back up, Scott. He looked at from the view of his own worldly, fleshly wisdom and intelligence. And he was able to come up with some pretty good stuff. Honestly, think about that. What he wrote there, that's pretty good writing. If you know anything about writing, that's really good writing. That's really deep. It comes from a very deep place in somebody's mind that they set the thought of these things and they come up with this. And he put his faith in that ability. Because if you read and study Norman McLean, you find that he never really got the fact that what his daddy was trying to teach him was that those words that Norman McLean they're talking about, Norman McLean is saying, under the rocks are the words, and some of the words are theirs. Theirs being the people that he has known and loved through his life, that have gone on before him. He outlived his, most of his family, his wife, and all these people. And he was saying that those timeless raindrops on those rocks, those were the impressions made by those people that he loved so much in his youth and in his young adult life. And that made the most impression. That's the timeless raindrops he's writing about. All right? And then he says, and this was something that his dad told him about the rocks and the stream. It's where it come from. And then he says, under the rocks are the words. And he's absolutely right, because that was something his dad told him, that the word was under the rocks. Even before the rocks was God, it was Jesus. Even Jesus was before. Which is something that people sometimes don't get. That Jesus was there and he created. And he was there. He was under the rocks, those ancient rocks. In Norman's mind, though that wasn't Jesus is what he was talking about, in Norman's mind, it was even before time. All of these things are so important, and those words that are so timeless and important are the words and the thoughts and the memories of the people that meant so much to him. And although that is a wonderful way to look at things, and it is from a human person or viewpoint, he missed the point of what his daddy was trying to give to him. His daddy was trying to give to him the Word of God. His daddy was trying to show him how important it was to put your faith and your understanding and your wisdom in God. Although this stuff, and we're supposed to go to school, boys and girls, and we're supposed to do well in our studies, and we are. We're supposed to do that. But understand that that's not really the most important thing. God is. And God will always lead you and guide you and direct you and do all those things for you, because he's the one that's always there. He's the one that, and that's something I wanted to make clear with this, and I don't want to miss it today. Those two ways of seeing things and understanding things and becoming wise in things, both are going to be right, even though they'll be different. You will be able to be right, and you'll be able to reason things out from a human wisdom, human intelligence standpoint. But if you look at it through godly wisdom and godly intelligence, it will be something different than what that man comes up with. And it will be different, yet it will both be right. The world's going to tell you that God was wrong. It's just like David verse about a little bit today. There's a verse in the Bible that says that, well, it says that preaching in the Bible, this is foolish, and that it's no good, and that's not going to get you anywhere, and it's the wrong answer, and that you need to study the intelligence and the intellect and the technological advancements of man. That's what gets you to where you need to be. But we know that's not true if we're Christians, if we love God. We know that this is the right wisdom. Just like it said there that Timothy, or Paul said to Timothy, avoid the profane and vain babblings. So in other words, avoid the wisdom and the higher intellect of man. That's not what science, in this case, when this was written, when they used the word science there, in opposition to science, also so-called science simply meant knowledge. And what he was saying is that what they are saying is knowledge is not knowledge. Godly wisdom is what is real knowledge. And that's what you need to use. And again, I'm not telling you don't learn in school to do those things. You got to do that stuff. We have to know things. But if you want the real truth of life, it's found here, and it's godly wisdom. And I would encourage you to use this. You see, McLean wrote, I am haunted by waters. Why was he haunted by waters?
Because everything he talked about there was about water.
Yeah, but why was he haunted by waters? Let me put the emphasis on the word haunted.
I wouldn't say he was haunted by it.
Okay, very good. Yes. Is that what, I mean, I think you were there. But I wanted you to emphasize the haunted part there.
He talked about the river, the flood, the rain.
Yes, water was the central point in the family. And that's why it's a river runs through. That's why the viewpoint that he writes from is about this. It's why we say a river runs through instead of a basketball court runs through, or a highway runs through. It's what means most to us in his family, and in his case, that river was that central point, and that's why he chose it to write from that. He was haunted by water. Let me tell you what I get. I am blessed by water. Why is he haunted? Because his viewpoint is a human viewpoint. He's thinking of all he has lost. He's thinking now as an old man, he's thinking back, and he misses his wife, and he misses his father, and his mother, and his brother, and all these that's already gone on. He misses them, and when you don't have hope, what is hope? Something gives you. You wanted to say it, I heard you say it. It's something that we get from our relationship with Jesus Christ. As long as Jesus is our Savior, we have a hope going forward. We don't have to be haunted by what's behind us. No, and that's why that's the one phrase that for so long I tried to understand why he said I am haunted by waters. And it finally, when they come to me, that he was haunted because his worldview is one that does not give hope. His worldview don't give hope.
Well, he spent his life growing up not believing the same way as daddy probably.
And see, then here's the thing that we have to understand, y'all, and this is some of that harsh stuff. Like I said, everything I can read and find and study on John McLean, Norman's dad, not Norman's son John, but Norman's dad John, the Presbyterian minister, was that he was a godly Christian man that feared God, that preached the word, that believed this Bible is true. That's what I find. And even though John or Norman grew up in that, he still couldn't see that. See, we can't make our kids. We can't. But what can we do? We can give it to them. We can expose them to it. We can let them know this is the way, and then they have to seek, y'all have to seek that relationship with God personally. Don't worry, us parents are still going to pray as hard as we can pray.
It makes me, you know the Maria Weaver song, The House That Built Me?
Oh, yeah.
It makes me kind of think of that, like that's what, but it's kind of sad. Like, it's just sad, because it's like, all he has is what was.
What was? He has nothing
And
but
not,
That's
you
right.
know.
And that was the thing that's what finally got me to that, when I finally realized that statement is simply a statement that has no hope in it. You know, even though it's a beautiful line, and it is if you like literature, and I'm a literature guy, that is so beautifully written. I mean, it's just, I love the way that's all, every bit of that's written. But that is sad. And that is something that, there's a, for whatever, I love that movie, I love that book, and I always just get such great pleasure out of it, but I also have a little melancholy
That
feeling.
movie's still sad.
Huh?
That movie.
Well, there's sadness in it.
It's a
and-
great movie.
And that part is where, and to me, I am, and because that's what ends the movie. I am haunted by waters. That's what ends the book. I am haunted by waters. And for some reason, that just never felt. I never got the peace that I get from a lot of other parts of the book from that part. And then I finally realized that's because of the lack of hope. And that's, you know, that comes from our worldview. Our worldview is determined by where our faith is. Is our faith in us, or other humans, or human intellect? Or is our faith in God? And if your faith's in God, you're not haunted by waters, you're blessed by it. They're cherished memories, and you know this much. For those that have gone before me that are Christians, I want to see them.
Well, and I think too, it's what's the source of your joy? Because if the source of your joy is in man or those around you, when they are gone, when they're
Joy is
gone in
gone.
the past, right, if they were your source of joy, then
And that's right. Anytime that we have joy based on something here on earth, it's something human, it's going to, you know, that goes away one day. No matter what, that source of joy ends up going away sometime. So, but if our faith and our joy is in God, we never lose that. It's a hope. It's the true meaning of hope. So, anyway, like I said, I knew that was it's a little bit deep and that kind of stuff. It might be a little bit over some of our heads or something, or not that. Not over our heads, but rather over our desire to hear about. But the bottom line comes down to this, about the fact that understand that, and I'm trying to remember, Dalton, there was something back, you asked me a question one time about, it's been a couple of years back now, I think.
Dalton had a lot of questions.
And he did, but the one question that got me was, well, it was about, you know, where was God in the dinosaur and caveman area? And you remember asking me that, and I explained to you that, well, that actually didn't happen before Adam and Eve. You know, even though what we are taught in school, man's wisdom teaches us that, oh, that happened first. But biblical wisdom shows us that can't happen first, because no death entered into this world until Adam and Eve sinned. And then death entered, so that means Adam and Eve had to be first. So, you know, anyway, it all goes, I'm rambling now. But it's not.
I'll give you another example, just to help them understand, like the physical worldview versus the spiritual worldview.
Yes, and that's what it is, yeah.
Some of them may have been taught in school about the Big Bang.
Yes.
Right, like poof,
Yeah.
things happen.
Yeah, life was created from nothing.
So, when we have faith, we know that, well, the Big Bang kind of did happen, but
But it was
because God.
It was, let there be light. Let there be,
Right, so they created a scientific explanation for that,
that's right.
but
And this is
they're
where,
both true,
yeah,
in a sense,
and that's
like,
right.
because the Big Bang was God.
On the general aspect of the idea of the Big Bang, and that, yes, they're both true. Although we all know that we know the reason that the Big Bang occurred, the creation. There's a creation. It was not something from nothing. It was something from God. But you're right, and that shows, that's exactly right. So, that
Even though they oppose each other, they're really actually, they both have truth.
there's truth. There's, yeah, and again, one is a truth that misleads you. Even though it's a truth that misleads you. While the other is nothing but the truth. And that's the difference between that's exactly what I'm trying to talk about. The difference between that physical or worldly or man worldview, or that spiritual or godly worldview, which is the one that, you know, provides hope. So otherwise, you're hopeless. So anybody got anything they would like to add or interject or a question or anything like that on what we've discussed here? Anybody? So it's all crystal clear, right? So I did all those years of research just to make it easy for you. All
All
correct.
these years.
Okay. So nobody, nothing, crystal clear, easy, right? Okay. We'll quiz y'all on that. We'll see how that goes. I'm not telling you what it is, either. It's a pop quiz. Yes, but they're getting older and therefore you don't get them to ask questions anymore. And I think I left my, Josh, I leave my pen back there.
Yep.
Yeah, they're too cool to ask questions now, so I understand. And then our young ones are a little bit before. All right, oh, we'll do this. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say this. We have a work project coming up, young men. We will give y'all a date. It is going out into the community and helping someone, that a widow that needs some yard work done. So we will be doing some initial work on it, and then we are going to try to see if we can add the remainder of the project into the call to serve stuff for this summer. Also, any parents might want to interject, did we ask about any of our kids want to go to the camp? Because I need that, we got to start planning on that.
I didn't talk to my
And if y'all would, please give us a number here pretty soon. Well, can we have a number by next Wednesday so we'll know what we're looking at and that kind of stuff? Just do that. Remember, it's 12 and above on the ages, and it is staying overnight up at West Pittman, and it'll be Monday through Thursday night, I think. I believe is what it was. Dr. I'll give you more details. Dr. Maybe remember something I thought.
Saturday to Thursday, wasn't it?
Okay, may have been. Yeah, that's right. That may have been.
Because they go to church Sunday
Yeah,
morning.
and they are, the groups, the work group will probably go to church where they're going to be
Yeah,
working in
right.
that area. Josh, do you remember the dates on? I think I got it right.
11th through the, I think it was 11th through the 17th, 18th.
Yeah, June 11th through the 17th. So y'all mark that down and we check the calendars and see, and then if, you know, your kids are interested, then yes. How old are you then? Huh? I don't know for this one. 12. Yeah. All right. Anyways, that's just, if y'all would, parents, please, you know, let us know about that. You know, about that. Oh, well. Yeah, don't worry about that either. But anyway, if it, you know, if y'all want to go, we need to know so we can start making plans for that. So, all right. Let's go ahead and get to our prayer request. Prayer request, yes, ma'am. I got it right here. Ooh, let me put these back on so I see that. Right on. Yes, ma'am. And what? Yes, ma'am. And y'all look at Houston Clinic?
Not yet, we're waiting on them tomorrow. We had to make sure they're bulging, and now we have to wait on tomorrow.
Devin?
Yeah. Yeah, he had it back for years, but he's got it back. I checked with Houston Clinic if you can.
They came in through to
Ooh, that is bad. I'll come get his boat and keep it warm for you.
When I was out,
I had someone's, I
they got us
got
somebody set up.
like on,
Like, do
Watch.
watch? It's me, don't worry.
keep and watch on him, because he can't live like that.
Yeah. It's gonna be pretty rough if he can't go hunting fish.
Well,
Yes,
he
ma'am.
did get to church Sunday morning because the judge failed. So, Sunday was pretty depressing day.
Yeah, I
We
bet.
tried to finish it.
Yeah, all right. Any more? Oh, yes, sir.
I'm trying to figure out here, don't you treat a person with drugs and loaded for?
Don't really know. But we sure gonna pray for him.
I wish it wasn't so dangerous. I want to see.
I would like to have him update too. And, you know, hey, you never know. The Lord may bless us in some way of being able to get an update one day. That would be awesome, you know, to find out. But, you know, until then, I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray just like he's alive. I mean, if he's not alive and he's done went on to meet the Lord, I'm gonna, you know, hope that the Lord defers to whoever stepped in his shoes. So that's all I can do. Yes, sir. Understand the triple on that? because I don't answer them, I don't see it. 'Cause I don't have time. That's right, y'all remember Josh and my boss man, they go off gallivanting all over the world, and some of us stay back here and work.
Just go on a fishing trip.
That's a business trip.
Elizabeth is fishing.
Yes, it was.
I didn't even know that the day was gone.
That's because she don't pay attention to her daddy.
No, I
She's
know.
18, Miss Carson.
There was a girl that had a baby that took her off.
And
She was a catcher, like, she got player of the NCAA player of the week, Monday and Tuesday.
wow.
So, and there's been 3 NCAA athletes that have took their lives in her.
Remember that, and you
We'll
know,
talk about it later.
Carson, a lot of that goes, a lot of that goes to what we talked about tonight. What is our worldview? You know, and when our hope is in things that, you know, not God, we'll let the pressure of some things overtake us sometimes. And that's exactly what happened to her. You remember, let's remember her family. Let's remember all, you know, college athletics especially, but college in itself is such a big pressure on kids. You know, because we're programmed to believe that we have to perform, we have to do this, we have to, you know, believe in God. God will help us get us through whatever it is we got to have to do. We got to have to do.
Remembering the most important thing is our salvation.
Yes, yes, and we do.
That's truly what really matters.
And that's all that actually matters, you know. He'll make a way. I mean, it's that simple. If we'll put our trust in God, it's like he said, if he knows when a sparrow hits the ground dead, that's just a bird. That's just a little bird. How much more important are we? Because we are the creatures that he created to commune with him. So, I mean, put your faith and put your trust in God. He'll take care of it. For sure. All right, got any more requests? I have not heard anything. Yep. I have not heard anything new on truck. Rush?
He finally made numbers. And he had a lumbar and but it looked like he has it something. I didn't really very much, but she was just thanking God of the results that they got.
I know, because he went through he's had a long, hard road.
But he had a rough day today because he had his lumbar and he goes tomorrow. But other than that, like the numbers are just.
The numbers are,
He had to hit those numbers.
well, thank the Lord for that. Maybe it'll keep on going. And I know Tracy, the last I heard, was just doing great.
She looks so pretty. I saw a picture when she doesn't have her hair on. She looks so, she looks healthy, like her skin.
Did you see his post where he was saying that she had gone back and read a lot of the stuff and she said that she didn't remember some of those days.
Right.
Like looking at some of those pictures of herself, she really. it
Oh, I'm
was
sure she did. I
absolutely-
mean, it's very traumatic. She's very sick.
She was like, looking rough.
She was. She was looking good.
Put little knots on there. He's waiting on chest x-ray results.
What are they?
He's, well, they thought it was just allergies and it's just taking time for the worst. It's just ear infection, it's all in his chest. It's the first time he's been sick.
Yeah, so that's about to kill mom and daddy, I'm sure. Y'all don't know exactly what it does to us daddies.
Yeah, she's sick.
Yeah, oh, she, but believe me.
Maybe you're right.
You gotta go with the kids.
All right. Do we have any more requests? Anybody?
Let's,
Let's-
yep, I'm took on Friday and
Thank you, Lord, for that. That is awesome. And, we are very glad to hear that.
nothing
How's that looking? You know?
I don't know. I don't know if it's shorter, but maybe they just found that out last week.
Right. Well, if there's any way we can help in any please make sure you find that much money. Anything we might be able to do. And if anybody has any connections up around, it's Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
If anybody has any type of family or connections or whatever up around Atlanta, see, they're gonna be needing a place to stay. For a couple of months, I guess. So, anyways, let's keep on remembering Terry though and family.
Shane, literally, like, after, right when he started talking, Cece just texted, and, because that was today, she had taken him to the doctor, yesterday and today, they're actually getting back to the ER all the time. He's really sick,
So,
so,
remember,
yeah,
no, for
yeah,
sure.
like,
Yeah, just keep them in our prayers. How old is he now?
he's tender.
That's now, we got it. All right, anybody else? Any more requests?
Talked to him today, in 3 months, we'll have a new year.
I know that's something he's probably looking forward to.
Ordeal on that baby.
So the infection is clearing up good and everything, as far as,
How much of a turn, how long of a turnaround would that be, like, if you get the hip and the edge, you can walk?
I seriously, he will probably have to learn how to walk again, I imagine. There'll be a lot of therapy in that. Because of the extended amount of time. And, you know, if it was just a hip replacement, they'd bring him right back up, but I don't know if that'll work in this case. And that's Miss Donna. Also, just so everybody knows, if you don't know, the youth group is going to be providing lunch for the teachers of Ponce de Leon Elementary and High School on Thursday, the 7th, I think it is.
Next Thursday.
Yeah, next Thursday. We are, our fund will be providing lunch for the elementary and high school teachers there at Ponce de Leon. So if anybody says thank you to you, that's what it's for. Y'all
She
are-
had text you and told you that she had a better idea on how to do it.
Oh, yeah. And I was waiting, I was actually waiting for that. That's what my whole point
She
was.
told me, she said, I got a text, Shane, I don't like how you order.
That's what, I put this much, you asked Linda, I put that much thought into order because I knew good well she would set it straight.
Yep, she did. She did, she said, I don't like that.
And see, it's not about knowing everything, it's about knowing how to manipulate others to do it. So,
Yep.
no,
Just the teachers.
just the teachers.
The whole staff.
Yeah. Now, y'all can know that Josh will probably eat 3 of those pieces.
I thank y'all.
And he appreciates it.
Probably 4.
I thank y'all.
Josh, are you gonna share with me?
No.
Yeah. They'll all have the opportunity. All right, any more requests? Anybody? Anybody? Going once, going twice? All right, who's gonna lead us in prayer tonight? I see a hand, and that is Will. Everybody, please bow your heads, and Will, please say a special little prayer for Knox. Amen. All right, we'll see y'all next time.